Edward Harper once believed he had built an impregnable fortress, a three-story penthouse overlooking the Thames in Canary Wharf, the top premium coffee export company in Britain, a flawless wife named Victoria, a son named Daniel, attending the most expensive boarding school in London, and his own mother Eleanor well taken care of under the same roof. Everything looked perfect, at least on Instagram. That changed one October afternoon in London, when the rain came down in sheets. Edward cancelled a business flight to Scotland and came home earlier than usual. The moment the private lift doors slid open, he heard muffled sobbing from the upper floor. It was a sound he knew well, yet it had never been allowed to echo inside these walls. It was his mother Eleanor who had moved from rural Yorkshire 8 years earlier, after his father died, to live with them. Edward climbed the oak staircase without turning on the lights. His mother's door was ajar. Eleanor sat curled up in the old armchair she had brought from Yorkshire, arms wrapped around her knees, shoulders trembling. Standing over her was Victoria, speaking in that calm, cutting voice Edward knew too well. "I've told you a dozen times, stop cooking that stinking fish stew. The whole floor reeks, and giving Daniel pocket money behind my back. Do you think I'm blind? In this house, I control the finances. Stop playing the generous grandmother." Eleanor only bowed her head. Her voice was so soft, Edward had to hold his breath to hear it. "It's just, the boy likes the way I make it. And the money was from my pension, only to buy him books. Your pension." Victoria laughed coldly. "You've lived here rent-free for 8 years, and you dare mention your pension. Let me be clear one more time, and I'll have Edward send you straight back to that damp farmhouse in Yorkshire. Don't think I won't." Victoria turned on her heel and left. Edward shrank into the shadows. As his wife passed, he caught the sharp scent of Creed Aventus she had sprayed to mask the lingering smell of fish on his mother's cardigan. That night, Edward did not sleep. He opened the security camera system he had installed to keep an eye on the boy. Hundreds of clips appeared like knife wounds, his mother quietly mopping the marble floor at 3 a.m. so she wouldn't disturb the cleaner, eating cold leftovers in the corner of the kitchen because Grandma doesn't need much, sitting alone on the balcony during Victoria's wine parties because I don't want to be in the way, and dozens of moments when Victoria shouted, sneered, or once even shoved Eleanor so hard she fell to the floor. Edward watched the most recent clip last week. Eleanor had secretly used her cracked old phone to call her sister back in Yorkshire, whispering, "I'm fine. Don't worry. Everything here is more than enough. I just miss the rose garden." Tears rolled down her cheeks onto the broken screen. The next morning, Edward did not go to the office. He sat at the breakfast table opposite Victoria. She was scrolling through her iPad, smiling at photos her friends had posted from Saint-Tropez. "More coffee, darling?" she asked without looking up. "No. I have one question. In 8 Japan's years, have you ever once treated my mother like family?" Victoria froze, then gave a thin smile. "Not this again. I've put up with more than enough. She lives here in luxury, and now you're blaming me luxury." Edward placed his phone on the table and pressed play. Victoria's voice filled the bright kitchen word for word. Her face drained of color. She tried to laugh it off. "I lost my temper, that's all. She provokes me, the fish smell, sneaking money to Daniel." "Enough." Edward's voice was quiet, almost gentle. "I'm the one who brought her here. I'm the one who let her suffer for 8 years. Starting today, I fix my mistake." Victoria shot to her feet. "What exactly are you planning?" "Throw your wife and child out to defend that old woman. This penthouse has been in my name since the day we married. Remember, file for divorce. And you walk out with nothing." Edward looked out of the window. The The Thames flowed on, catching the pale London sun. He smiled, the first genuine smile in years, free of calculation. Fine. Keep the penthouse. I only need my mother. That same afternoon, he packed for her. Eleanor stared in disbelief as her son folded her patched cardigans into the old suitcase. Edward, what are you doing? I'm not going anywhere. I'm all right here. You're coming with me. I've bought a small wooden house in the Lake District with a rose garden and a lake. We're going home, Mom. Eleanor covered her face and cried, not from sorrow, but because for the first time in years, she heard the words going home from the son she thought the city had stolen forever. Victoria stood in the doorway, arms folded, voice sharp as ever. Leave and never come back. Daniel stays with me. He won't survive the smell of mud and sheep. Edward looked at his 9-year-old son hiding behind his mother's legs. He knelt down and opened his arms. Daniel, do you want to come with Dad and Granny? There's a lake, boats, and hundreds of birds. Daniel glanced at his mother, then at his grandmother, wiping her tears. He ran and threw his arms around Eleanor's neck. I'm going with Granny. She tells the best fairy tales and makes the best apple pie in the world. Victoria stood speechless. 3 days later, an old Range Rover carried the three of them out of London through thick morning fog. Eleanor sat in the back, clutching a small oak box. Inside were hundreds of paper cranes she had folded during 8 years of silence. Every time she was scolded, she folded one and whispered a wish, let my son be happy, even if it costs me everything. The Lake District welcomed them with mist and the scent of wet pine. The wooden house had only 4 rooms and creaking floors, but the moment Eleanor stepped inside, she burst into tears. She walked through the garden, caressing every sleeping rose bush, as if greeting old friends. That first evening, Edward lit the fireplace. Daniel sat in the middle, eyes shining at the flames. Eleanor took colored paper from the box and began teaching her grandson how to fold cranes. 1,000 paper cranes will make a wish come true, she said, voice trembling. Edward sat beside them and folded in silence. That night they made 17. The months slipped by like wind across the lake. Edward sold most of his shares, keeping only enough to live. He learned to prune roses from his mother, learned to listen to water lapping at night. Daniel went to the village school, skin-tanned hair, wild laughter ringing through the house. Eleanor started free paper crane classes for the local children. Every afternoon, the garden filled with children's voices. They called her Granny Crane. When a child arrived upset after being scolded at home, she said nothing. Simply placed a square of paper in their hand, fold. Wish. The crane will carry the sadness away. A year later, the roses bloomed wildly. Their scent filled the house. Eleanor sat on the porch with a cup of Earl Grey, watching her son and grandson laughing among the flowers. She smiled, eyes glistening. What did you wish for? Mum, Edward asked, sitting beside her. She drew a crumpled paper crane from her pocket and placed it in his hand. I finished my 1,000 long ago. My only wish was that one day my son would hear his mother cry. Today, it came true. Edward held her close. For the first time in years, he cried. His tears blurred the colors on the little crane. That winter, the village held a small festival by Lake Windermere. Children released thousands of paper cranes onto the water. White cranes danced on the surface, drifting south, carrying the wishes of many hearts. Edward stood on the wooden bridge, one arm around his mother, the other holding his son's hand. Under the moonlight, Eleanor whispered, "Now I finally have a home, Edward." He nodded. He understood home was not the 15 million pound penthouse overlooking the Thames, nor even this creaky wooden house. Home was the place where his mother no longer had to fold paper cranes in silence. When the lake wind rose, thousands of cranes lifted into the night sky over the Lake District, and Edward knew the greatest wish of his life was not wealth or status, but that he had heard his mother's tears before it was too late. If you have ever had to choose between what is right and what is easy, between blood and the picture-perfect family, go home and hug your mother today. Don't wait for the 1,000th crane. Thank you for reading to the very end. Please comment below and tell me where in the world you are reading this from. And if the story touched your heart, share it. Life is short. Love is the only thing money can never buy. See you in the next one.